The massive alien ship moved silently through space, invisible to human eyes. Its dark hull absorbed light like a hungry shadow, and its engines made no sound in the empty void. Captain Veltar stood on the bridge, watching Earth grow larger on his screen. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from this distance, but he knew better than to trust appearances. Status report. Veltar ordered in his native language. His voice carried the authority of someone who had observed dozens of worlds. "We are in position, Captain," replied Science Officer Nethera. Her long fingers danced across alien controls. "The humans cannot detect us at this range. Their sensors are still very basic." Veltar nodded. The Kytherian Collective had sent him here to watch and learn. Earth was just another world to study. The humans had recently learned to travel faster than light, which was interesting but not unusual. Most species figure out space travel eventually, right before they destroyed themselves. "Begin recording everything," he commanded. "The Council wants a complete report." Far below on Earth, people went about their normal lives. They had no idea that aliens watched them from above. Some looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone in the universe. They would have been surprised to learn the answer was no. On the other side of the solar system, Captain Jake Morrison walked onto the bridge of his ship. The UES Defiant was one of humanity's newest starships. It was not the biggest or the fastest, but Jake was proud to command it. His crew was young and eager to prove themselves. "Morning, Captain," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station. She was the ship's tactical officer, responsible for weapons and defense. Her short brown hair was pulled back in a neat style that met military rules. "Good morning, Amy," Jake replied. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. "What's our status?" "All systems running normally," reported Commander Ryan Blake from the engineering station. He was a big man who understood machines better than most people understood other people. "We should reach the outer colonies in 6 hours." Jake sat in his captain's chair and looked at the stars on the main screen. It still amazed him that humans could travel between them now. Just 50 years ago, people thought it was impossible. Now they had colonies on other worlds and ships that could cross vast distances in days instead of centuries. "Any interesting readings from the sensors?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Lisa Parker, the communications officer, checked her instruments. She was young and very good at her job. "Nothing unusual, sir. Just the normal space traffic around the colonies." Jake nodded. This was supposed to be a routine patrol mission. They would check on the outer settlements, make sure everything was working properly, and return to Earth. It was important work, but not very exciting. Back on the alien ship, Nethera studied the human vessels moving through space. She had observed many different species over the years, and humans seemed typical in most ways. They built ships that worked but were not very advanced. They fought wars but also tried to make peace. They were curious about the universe but still knew very little about it. "Their technology is developing faster than expected," she reported to Captain Veltar. "When we first detected them, they had just invented nuclear weapons. Now they have faster than light travel." "How much faster?" Veltar asked. "About 200 years faster than our model predicted," Nethera replied. This made Veltar pause. Most species followed predictable patterns. They discovered fire, then metals and electricity, then atomic power, then space travel. Each step usually took a certain amount of time. If humans were moving faster than normal, it might mean something important. "Keep watching," he ordered. "Record everything they do." The UES Defiant continued its journey toward the colonies. In the ship's small cafeteria, some of the crew ate lunch and talked about their families back on Earth. Others worked on their duties or read books in their spare time. It was a normal day on a normal patrol mission. Jake walked through the ship, checking on his people. He liked to know how everyone was doing. Good captains took care of their crews, and good crews took care of their ships. "How are the engines running?" he asked Ryan in the engineering section. "Like a dream," Ryan replied with a big smile. "These new plasma drives are amazing. We could probably push them 50% harder if we needed to." "Let's hope we don't need to," Jake said. He preferred peaceful missions to dangerous ones. In the science lab, Dr. Karen Wright studied readings from space. She was a xenolinguist, which meant she studied alien languages. Of course, humans had never met any aliens, so mostly she studied old radio signals from space and tried to figure out if any of them might be messages from other worlds. Anything interesting today? Jake asked her. Just the usual background noise, Karen replied, though there was one strange reading earlier. Probably just a solar flare or something. Jake made a mental note to check the sensor logs later. Captains learned to pay attention to small details. Sometimes small things turned into big problems. On the alien observation ship, military advisor Zephyron reviewed the human fleet movements. He was impressed despite himself. Human ships moved in good formations and seemed well organized. Their crews appeared trained and disciplined. They are not as primitive as we first thought, he told Veltar. In what way? The captain asked. Their military organization is quite advanced. They coordinate multiple ships well and respond quickly to changing situations. Most species at this technology level still fight like individual warriors. Veltar found this interesting. Military development often showed how a species thought and planned. If humans were good at working together in space, they might be more dangerous than expected. The observation mission was supposed to last 6 months. The Kytherians would watch, learn, and then file a report. The report would recommend whether humans should be contacted, quarantined, or simply left alone. Most species got the leave alone recommendation. They were either too primitive to matter or too dangerous to approach. As both ships continued their separate journeys through space, neither side knew that everything was about to change. The humans thought they were alone in the universe. The aliens thought they understood what humans were capable of. Both sides were about to learn they were wrong. 3 weeks later, the U.S. Defiant was running a training exercise near the asteroid belt. Jake had his crew practice different scenarios to keep them sharp. Today, they were pretending to search for pirates hiding among the floating rocks. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV. Amy called out from her station. Wait, that's strange. What kind of strange? Jake asked, moving to look over her shoulder. The reading doesn't match anything in our database. It's too big to be a ship, but it's moving like one. And there's some kind of energy field around it that I've never seen before. Jake frowned. Unknown contacts in space were always concerning. Range. About 50,000 kilometers. Should I go to alert status? Not yet. Lisa, try to contact them on all frequencies. Let's see if anyone wants to talk. Lisa began sending messages in every language and format she knew. Unknown vessel. This is a U.S. Defiant. Please respond. She tried the same message in Chinese, Russian, Spanish, and Arabic. Then she tried mathematical sequences and simple radio pulses. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then her console lit up with an incoming signal. Captain, I'm getting a response. But the signal format is completely unknown. It's not like any human communication system. On the alien ship, panic spread through the bridge. Captain Veltar stared at his screens in disbelief. Somehow, the humans had detected them through their stealth systems. How is this possible? He demanded. Our cloaking technology is thousands of years ahead of theirs. Nethera worked frantically at her controls. I don't understand it either. They're using some kind of sensor array that shouldn't be able to penetrate our fields. But the readings are definitely locked onto us. Should we run? Asked Zephyron. Veltar considered this. Running would protect them, but it would also mean abandoning the mission. The Council had ordered him to observe humans, not flee from them at the first sign of trouble. No, he decided. If they can see us, there's no point hiding anymore. Open a channel. Back on the Defiant, Jake watched his screen as something impossible happened. The empty space in front of them began to shimmer like heat waves. Slowly, a massive ship became visible. It was unlike anything humans had ever built, with smooth curves and a dark surface that seemed to absorb light. My God, whispered Amy. How big is that thing? Computer estimates it at over 2 kilometers long, Lisa reported, her voice shaking slightly. The alien ship was at least 10 times bigger than the Defiant. Jake felt his heart racing, but he kept his voice calm. "All hands, this is the captain. We have made contact with what appears to be a vessel of non-human origin. Remain at your posts and follow orders." A new voice came through the ship's speakers. It spoke perfect English, though with a strange accent. "Human vessel. This is Captain Veltar of the Kytherian observation ship Silent Dawn. We mean you no harm." Jake took a deep breath. This was the moment humans had wondered about for centuries. "Captain Veltar, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the U.S. Defiant. We welcome peaceful contact." "We must talk," Veltar replied. "But first, how did you detect our ship?" Jake looked at Amy, who shrugged. "Our sensors picked up some kind of subspace distortion. We thought it might be a gravitational anomaly." There was a long pause before Veltar spoke again. "Subspace distortion? Your sensors can detect subspace. Is that unusual?" Jake asked. Another pause. "We will discuss this when we meet. Can you come aboard our vessel?" Jake felt excited and nervous at the same time. This was clearly a huge moment in human history, but he was also responsible for his crew's safety. "I'll bring a small team," he said. "My science officer and one security person." "Acceptable. We will extend the docking tube." Within an hour, Jake found himself walking through an alien corridor. The walls were smooth and curved, made of some material he didn't recognize. Soft lights provided illumination, but he couldn't see where they came from. Dr. Karen Wright walked beside him, carrying a portable computer and translator device. She was trying to hide her excitement, but Jake could tell she was thrilled. This was what she had trained for her whole life. Behind them walked Marine Sergeant Bill Clark, a big man with alert eyes who was ready for trouble. He didn't like the idea of his captain going onto an alien ship, but orders were orders. Captain Veltar met them in what looked like a conference room. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. His hands had 4 fingers instead of 5, and his ears were pointed like a cat's. "Welcome aboard the Silent Dawn," he said. His mouth moved strangely when he spoke, but the words came out in clear English. "Thank you for receiving us," Jake replied. "This is Dr. Karen Wright, our language specialist, and Sergeant Bill Clark." Veltar gestured for them to sit at a table that seemed to grow out of the floor. "We have been observing your species for some time." "How long?" Karen asked. "Several weeks. We are part of the Kytherian Collective, an alliance of civilizations that monitors developing species throughout this region of the galaxy." Jake felt a chill. "Monitors for what purpose?" "To determine if you are ready for contact with galactic civilization." Veltar explained. "Most species destroy themselves before reaching the stars. Others become threats to their neighbors. We watch and evaluate. And what have you concluded about us?" Jake asked. Veltar looked uncomfortable. "That is still being determined. But your detection of our ship has raised new questions." Dr. Wright leaned forward. "You seem surprised that we could see you." "Very surprised. Your technology should not be advanced enough to penetrate our stealth systems. Yet somehow you did it easily. Maybe your information about our technology is outdated," Jake suggested. "Perhaps. Tell me, how did you develop faster-than-light travel so quickly?" Jake described how human scientists had worked together, sharing information and building on each other's discoveries. He explained about international cooperation and the space program. Veltar listened with growing interest. Most species develop space travel through military competition. Wars drive technological advancement. But you say humans share their knowledge freely. "Not always," Jake admitted. "We've had our share of wars. But for space exploration, we mostly work together." This seemed to puzzle the alien captain. He asked many questions about human society, technology, and history. Dr. Wright took detailed notes and asked her own questions about Kytherian civilization. They learned that the galaxy was full of intelligent species, most much older than humanity. The Kytherians had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They had seen hundreds of species rise and fall. "What happens to species that don't pass your evaluation?" Bill asked. "That depends on the threat level," Veltar replied. "Some are quarantined. Others are left alone. A few are contacted and helped to develop peacefully. And some?" Jake pressed. Veltar didn't answer directly. Let us hope that question remains theoretical. The meeting lasted several hours. When it ended, both sides had agreed to continue talking. The aliens would share some basic information about galactic civilization. The humans would demonstrate their technology and explain their rapid development. As Jake and his team returned to the Defiant, they knew their lives had changed forever. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. The question now was whether that was good news or bad news. On the Silent Dawn, Veltar composed a message to the Kytherian Council. The humans were not what they had expected. Their technology was more advanced than it should be, and their society was different from the normal patterns. He decided not to mention his growing suspicion that humans might be more dangerous than anyone realized. 2 weeks after first contact, the asteroid belt had become a busy place. 3 more human ships had arrived, along with scientists, diplomats, and military observers from Earth. Admiral Chris Taylor commanded the small human fleet from his flagship, the UES Discovery. The alien ship remained nearby, and both sides were learning about each other. Cultural exchanges happened every day. Humans toured parts of the Kytherian vessel, while aliens visited human ships. Everyone was curious about how the other side lived. Dr. Karen Wright had become the unofficial ambassador between the two species. She worked with Kytherian linguists to improve translation and spent hours learning about alien culture. The more she learned, the more amazed she became. They've been traveling in space for over 3,000 years, she told Admiral Taylor during a briefing. Their technology is so advanced that some of it seems like magic to us. But they seem surprised by our sensors, the Admiral noted. He was an older man with white hair and sharp eyes who had served in space for 30 years. That's the strange part. In most ways, they're far ahead of us. But in a few specific areas, we seem to be ahead of them. It doesn't make sense. On the Kytherian ship, military advisor Zephyron was having similar conversations with Captain Veltar. He had been studying human military organization and found it fascinating. Their warships are crude but effective, he reported. What interests me is their training methods. They run something called war games where they practice fighting against each other. Many species do combat training. Veltar replied, not like this. Humans create complex scenarios where neither side knows what the other will do. They treat it like a real battle, with winners and losers. It's designed to test their ability to adapt and improvise. Veltar found this intriguing. Most advanced species relied on computer models and mathematical analysis for military planning. The idea of deliberately creating unpredictable situations seemed wasteful. Why would they make training more difficult than necessary? He asked. I think they believe chaos makes them stronger, Zephyron said. Their military philosophy is built around expecting the unexpected. The next day, Zephyron requested permission to observe human training exercises. Admiral Taylor agreed, thinking it would help build trust between the species. Jake Morrison's crew was running combat drills when the alien military advisor came aboard the Defiant. Lieutenant Amy Foster was practicing targeting procedures while Commander Ryan Blake tested the ship's defensive systems. Zephyron watched everything with great interest. He was a tall, thin alien with gray skin and 4 arms. His species had evolved differently than humans, but he was clearly intelligent and observant. Your crew trained for many different scenarios, he noted to Jake. We never know what we might face out here, Jake replied. Pirates, equipment failures, natural disasters. The better prepared we are, the better chance we have of bringing everyone home safely. But you practice fighting other human ships as well? Sometimes. We call them war games. Different ships or fleets pretend to be enemies and try to defeat each other. It helps us learn new tactics and test our equipment. Zephyron's large eyes grew even larger. You fight your own kind for practice? Not really fighting. We use simulated weapons that can't cause real damage. Computer systems track who would have been hit or destroyed if the weapons were real. It's like a very serious game. This concept fascinated the alien advisor. He asked many questions about how war games worked, what rules they followed, and how humans decided who won or lost. That evening, he met with Captain Veltar and the other alien observers. Science Director Nethera had been studying human technology, while Communications Officer Quindal had been learning about human culture. "I have an unusual proposal," Zephyron told him. "I think we should participate in one of their war games." The others looked surprised. "For what purpose?" Veltar asked. "To better understand their capabilities. Our mission is to evaluate whether humans are ready for galactic civilization. The best way to judge a species' potential is to see how they perform under pressure." Nethera objected. "Our technology is far superior to theirs. It would not be a fair contest." "That's exactly my point," Zephyron replied. "If we can defeat them easily, we confirm that they are still primitive. But if they prove more capable than expected, we learn something important about their potential." Veltar considered this. The Council had ordered a thorough evaluation of human capabilities. A military exercise would certainly provide valuable data. "What did you have in mind?" he asked. "A simulated fleet battle. Several human ships against a similar number of our vessels. We use training weapons that cannot cause real damage. The side that would have destroyed or disabled all enemy ships wins." The idea was unusual, but it made sense. The Kytherians had superior technology and thousands of years of experience. A war game would let them demonstrate their advantages while testing human reactions to superior force. Veltar contacted Admiral Taylor with the proposal. The human commander was surprised but interested. "You want to have a mock battle between our fleets?" Taylor asked during a video conference. "A training exercise," Veltar corrected. "We are curious about human military tactics. Such an exercise would benefit both sides." Taylor discussed the idea with his captains. Jake Morrison thought it sounded exciting. Captain Steve Collins of the heavy cruiser U.S. Ranger was eager to test his ship against alien technology. The crew of the Discovery saw it as a chance to gather scientific data. "We accept your proposal," Taylor told the aliens. "When and where do you want to hold this exercise?" They agreed to conduct the war games in 3 days. The asteroid belt will provide an interesting battlefield with obstacles and places to hide. Both sides would use special training weapons that could simulate damage without causing real harm. Lieutenant Colonel Katie Brooks arrived from Earth aboard a fast courier ship. She was a Marine tactical specialist who had studied every recorded space battle in human history. Admiral Taylor wanted her expertise for the exercise. "What do we know about alien combat capabilities?" she asked during the planning session. "Not much," admitted Captain Collins. "Their ships are bigger and probably more powerful than ours. But we don't know their tactics or how they fight." Jake spoke up. "I've been talking to their military advisor. He seems very confident about the outcome. Maybe overconfident." Amy Foster had been analyzing what little sensor data they had gathered about the Kytherian ship. "Their vessel has some kind of energy shielding that's more advanced than anything we have. Our weapons might not be able to penetrate it." "Then we'll have to be creative," Katie said with a smile. "That's what humans do best." Over the next 3 days, both sides prepared for the exercise. The humans studied their sensor readings and developed new tactics. The aliens reviewed their standard combat procedures and prepared their training weapons. Neither side fully understood what they were getting into. The aliens expected an easy demonstration of their superiority. The humans saw it as a chance to learn about galactic-level technology. Both sides were about to discover that assumptions could be dangerous. On the morning of the exercise, Jake stood on his bridge and looked at the asteroid field ahead. Somewhere among those floating rocks, alien ships were waiting. His crew was nervous but excited. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the ship's communication system. "Today we represent not just our ship or our fleet, but all of humanity. Let's show our new friends what humans can do when we put our minds to it." The war games were about to begin. The asteroid belt stretched out in all directions, filled with floating rocks and ancient debris. Admiral Taylor divided his human fleet into 3 groups. Jake Morrison commanded the Defiant and 2 escort ships. Captain Steve Collins took the Ranger and its support vessels through the middle section. The Discovery stayed back to coordinate and observe. On the alien side, Captain Veltar commanded 4 Kytherian ships. Each one was larger and more advanced than anything humanity had built. Their energy shields glowed softly blue, and their weapon systems were charged and ready. "Begin the exercise," Admiral Taylor announced over the communication system. The Kytherian ships moved forward in a perfect formation. Their sensors could see through the asteroid field easily, and their computers had already calculated the best approach routes. Military advisor Zephyron expected the battle to last about 2 hours. Human resistance would collapse quickly when faced with superior technology. But the human ships had already vanished. "Where did they go?" asked Navigation Officer Thelen on the lead Kytherian vessel. "Impossible," muttered Zephyron, checking his instruments. "They were there a moment ago." Jake Morrison smiled as he watched the alien ships from his hiding spot behind a large asteroid. "They're looking for us in the open space," he told his crew. "They expect us to fight like they do, ship to ship in clear areas." "What's our move?" asked Amy Foster. "We make them come to us. Lisa, send a message to all human ships. Tell them to use Pattern Gamma 7. Pattern Gamma 7 was something the humans had developed during their planning sessions. Instead of fighting in formation like traditional space navies, they would split up and use the asteroids like soldiers use buildings and hills on a planet. The first Kytherian ship moved between 2 large asteroids, searching for human vessels. Suddenly, the Defiant appeared from behind a rock, fired its training weapons, and disappeared again. The computer systems registered multiple hits on the alien ship's hull. "What just happened?" demanded Captain Veltar. "The human ship used the asteroid as cover," Zephyron reported. "Our shields absorbed the damage, but they scored direct hits." More attacks came from different directions. Human ships popped out from behind rocks, fired quickly, and hit again. They were using the asteroid field like a 3-dimensional jungle, striking and vanishing before the aliens could respond. "This is not standard space combat," Veltar said, sounding frustrated. "No, it's not," agreed Zephyron. "They're fighting like ground troops, not like starship crews." On the Discovery, Lieutenant Colonel Katie Brooks watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. The human ships appeared as green dots, moving in unpredictable patterns through the asteroid field. The alien ships showed as red dots, trying to form battle lines in open space. "They're treating this like deep space naval combat," she told Admiral Taylor. "But we're fighting it like urban warfare." The Kytherian ships tried to adapt. They spread out and began searching the asteroid field more carefully. But every time they found a human ship, it was gone before they could bring their superior weapons to bear. Commander Ryan Blake came up with the next surprise. "Captain," he called out to Jake, "I've been thinking about our warp drive." "What about it?" Jake asked, watching for the next opportunity to attack. "Well, if we can create a small warp field around the ship, what happens if we create one next to an enemy vessel?" Jake thought about this. "You mean use our engines as weapons?" "Sort of. The gravitic distortion might disrupt their systems. It's worth trying." Jake grinned. "Do it." The Defiant approached one of the alien ships from behind an asteroid. But instead of firing its regular weapons, Ryan activated a modified warp field projection. The space around the Kytherian vessel twisted and warped. Alarms began sounding on the alien bridge. "Hull stress warnings," shouted the engineering officer. "Gravitic shear is affecting our structural integrity." The ship's computer registered catastrophic damage from an impossible source. According to the simulation, the vessel was destroyed. "How?" Veltar demanded. "They didn't fire any weapons." Zephyron stared at his readings in disbelief. "They weaponized their warp drive. They created a localized space distortion that tore our hull apart. This was something no one had ever seen before. Warp drives were for transportation, not combat. The idea of using them as weapons had never occurred to any known species. But the humans weren't done with surprises. Captain Collins and the Ranger had been moving through the asteroid field, hunting for alien ships. When his tactical officer spotted a Kytherian vessel trying to flank them, Collins tried something new. "Fire a spread of training torpedoes at that cluster of asteroids," he ordered. "Sir, the enemy ship isn't near those rocks," his weapons officer pointed out. "Trust me," Collins said. The torpedoes exploded against the asteroids, breaking them into thousands of smaller pieces. The debris cloud spread out, creating a temporary minefield between the alien ship and the human vessels. Now they have to go around or come straight through, Collins explained to his crew. Either way, we know where they'll be. The Kytherian captain chose to go straight through, confident that his shields could handle small debris. But as his ship pushed into the cloud, the human vessels opened fire from multiple directions. The alien ship found itself caught in a crossfire with nowhere to hide. Within minutes, the computer registered it as destroyed. On the observation ship, Science Director Nethera was analyzing everything that happened. Captain, we need to stop this exercise. Why? Veltar asked. Because we're losing, she said quietly. The humans have destroyed 3 of our 4 ships, and we haven't eliminated a single one of theirs. This was impossible. The Kytherians had better ships, better weapons, and better shields. They had thousands of years of experience. The humans were newcomers who had barely learned to leave their own solar system. But the humans had something the aliens didn't expect: the ability to think in ways that no computer could predict. Dr. Karen Wright, watching from the Discovery, saw what was happening. They're not fighting the way space battles are supposed to work, she told Admiral Taylor. They're making up new rules as they go along. The last Kytherian ship tried a desperate strategy. It powered up all its weapons and charged straight at the human formation, hoping to destroy several ships before being eliminated. Jake Morrison saw it coming. All ships, execute Plan Omega, he ordered. The human vessels scattered in different directions, but not randomly. They moved in a carefully planned pattern that put the alien ship in the center of a sphere. No matter which way it turned, human ships were shooting at it from every angle. The final alien vessel lasted less than 5 minutes. Exercise complete, Admiral Taylor announced. Final score, humans 4, alien 0. Total time, 6 hours and 17 minutes. On the Kytherian bridge, silence filled the air. Captain Veltar stared at the tactical display, unable to believe what he was seeing. His superior fleet had been completely destroyed by ships that shouldn't have been able to hurt them. How? He whispered. Zephyron was already composing an emergency message to the Kytherian High Council. The humans weren't just another primitive species learning to use technology. They were something entirely different. They were innovators who could change the rules of warfare in real time. We need to warn the Council, Zephyron said urgently. Everything we thought we knew about humans is wrong. Veltar nodded slowly. The observation mission was over. Now they needed to decide what humanity's place in the galaxy would be. And that decision would change everything. News of the war game spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Captain Veltar's emergency report reached the Kytherian High Council within hours. What started as a routine observation mission had become the most important discovery in centuries. On the Council homeworld, 5 ancient beings sat in a crystal chamber that had seen the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations. Council leader Morthen read the report 3 times before speaking. You're telling us that a species that achieved faster-than-light travel less than 50 years ago defeated our most advanced fleet in simulated combat? Yes, Council leader. Veltar replied through subspace communication. They didn't just win. They completely changed how space warfare works. They used tactics and weapons we've never seen before. Council member Vexera leaned forward. Explain these new tactics. Zephyron took over the briefing. They treated three-dimensional space like a terrestrial battlefield. Instead of fighting in formation, they used cover and concealment. They turned their propulsion systems into weapons. They created tactical situations that our combat computers couldn't predict or counter. The council members looked at each other with concern. For thousands of years, they had been the most advanced military force in this region of space. If humans could defeat them so easily, what did that mean for galactic stability? What do you recommend? Asked Morthen. Immediate contact, Veltar said without hesitation. These humans are too dangerous to leave alone and too valuable to destroy. We need them as allies, not enemies. Back in the asteroid belt, the human crews were celebrating their victory. They didn't fully understand how important their win had been, but they knew they had impressed their alien observers. Admiral Taylor met with his captains on the Discovery. Jake Morrison, Steve Collins, and Katie Brooks sat around a conference table, discussing what had happened. Did we really do that well, or were they holding back? Collins wondered. I don't think they were holding back, Jake replied. You should have seen their faces afterward. They looked shocked. Katie had been analyzing the battle recordings. We didn't fight the way they expected. They seemed to think space combat followed specific rules and formations. We treated it like any other kind of warfare. What do you mean? Admiral Taylor asked. On Earth, we fight on land, sea, air, and now space. But the principles are the same. Use cover, create advantages, adapt to changing conditions. Maybe other species never learned to think that way. Dr. Karen Wright joined the meeting with news from the alien ship. Captain Veltar wants to hold formal negotiations. He says their High Council is very interested in establishing diplomatic relations. That was fast, Taylor noted. A few hours ago, we were just being observed. Now they want to negotiate. I think we surprised them more than we realized, Karen said. Over the next several days, both sides worked to understand what had happened. The aliens shared information about galactic civilization, while the humans demonstrated more of their technology and tactics. Nethera discovered something that explained human capabilities. Captain, I've been studying their technological development. They didn't follow normal patterns. How so? Veltar asked. Most species develop each technology separately, then slowly combine them. Humans seem to develop everything at once and immediately look for new ways to use it. They invented computers and immediately started using them to design better spaceships. They discovered nuclear power and immediately thought about using it for propulsion. And this makes them more adaptable? Extremely. They don't think about what technology is supposed to do. They think about what it could do. Meanwhile, human engineers were studying the alien ship with permission from its crew. Commander Ryan Blake couldn't believe what he was seeing. Their power systems are incredible, he told Admiral Taylor, but they're designed for specific purposes. Our systems are less efficient, but more flexible. We can modify them on the fly. Is that why we win the war games? Taylor asked. Partly. Their weapons are more powerful, but they can only be used in predetermined ways. When we did something unexpected, their computers couldn't adapt fast enough. The breakthrough in understanding came when Katie Brooks met with Zephyron to discuss military philosophy. The alien advisor was fascinated by human warfare concepts. Your species fights in so many different environments, he noted. Land, sea, air, space, even underground and underwater. Most species only fight in one or two environments. We're adaptable, Katie said. We have to be. Earth has many different climates and terrains. This explains much. You think of warfare as problem-solving rather than following established procedures. Don't other species do that? Zephyron considered this. Most rely on proven methods and superior technology. The idea of deliberately creating chaos to find new solutions is unusual. Word of the humans spread to the galactic communication networks. Other civilizations began sending their own observation ships to study these newcomers who had defeated Kytherian forces. The Andrith Empire dispatched a battle cruiser to investigate. The Zen Collective sent a science vessel. Even the mysterious Void Walkers emerged from deep space to observe humanity. Captain Veltar found himself receiving visitors from across the galaxy. All wanted to know about the humans. Some were curious. Others were worried, and a few seemed interested in testing human capabilities themselves. We may have created a problem, he told Admiral Taylor during one of their regular meetings. Many species want to see if you're as dangerous as our report suggests. Are we in danger? Taylor asked. Not immediately. Galactic law requires peaceful contact with new species. But there will be challenges. Some civilizations may want to test your abilities. Others may try to recruit you as allies or mercenaries. Jake Morrison was promoted to Commodore and given command of humanity's first diplomatic fleet. His mission was to represent Earth in formal contact with galactic civilization. How does it feel to be humanity's first space ambassador? Dr. Wright asked him as they prepared for their journey to the Kytherian homeworld. Terrifying, Jake admitted. A few months ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Now we're supposed to represent our entire species to dozens of alien civilizations. You'll do fine. Just be yourself. The formal diplomatic mission launched 2 weeks later. 5 human ships, including the Defiant, began the long journey to Kytherian space. They carried representatives from every major Earth government and enough scientific equipment to study everything they encountered. But they weren't traveling alone. Alien observation ships followed at a respectful distance. Word had spread that the humans were coming, and everyone wanted to see them. On the Kytherian homeworld, preparations were underway for something unprecedented. Instead of a junior species being introduced to galactic civilization, the humans were being invited as potential equals. The war games had changed everything. Humanity wasn't just another primitive species learning to use advanced technology. They were innovators who could challenge established ways of thinking. Council leader Moore then stood in the Great Assembly Hall, looking out at representatives from 40 different civilizations. Today, we welcome a new species to our community. But these are not ordinary newcomers. In 6 hours of simulated combat, they have shown us possibilities we never imagined. As Jake Morrison's diplomatic fleet approached the Kytherian homeworld, he looked out at the stars and wondered what the future held. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and their first impression had been memorable. They had come as observers and become game changers. The galaxy would never be the same. On Earth, people watched news broadcasts showing alien ships and impossible technologies. Children looked up at the night sky and knew that somewhere among those stars, humans were representing their species, the beings they had only dreamed about. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human expansion had begun, and it had all started with a simple training exercise that showed the galaxy what humans could do when they refused to follow the rules.